My name is Matt Menifee. I'm the forensic science teacher at University High School, and this is Mr. Robert Callahan, attorney at Callahan and King.
Hello.
And go ahead and give us kind of your educational background and why you got into law, and that would cover the kind of the first batch of questions we have.
Sure. So I did my undergrad in political science at Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington. Graduated in 2000, started Baylor Law School in the spring of 2002. I knew that I wanted to go to law school when I was 11 years old, and that was largely due to growing up in the South and just seeing sort of social injustice on a daily basis.
What part of the South did you grow up in, Robert?
Louisiana, Bossier City, Louisiana, for most of my life up until I was a freshman in high school. So at some point in time along the way, I figured out that there are these things called lawyers and that those guys are trained to fight injustice. And so I decided very early on that that's what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up.
Okay. I know one of the questions we've had a lot from is how long have you been a lawyer at this point?
So I was licensed in 2006. Is that right? Yes, 2006.
Okay.
So I have been doing this year will be 14 years.
Okay. And one of the other questions that go along with this is how much education did you have to get here, which I think 4 years of regular college and then what? Is law school 4 years or is it more or less? I honestly don't know.
It's 3 years. So yeah, you got your 4 years of undergraduate after high school or after you get your GED. And then you do law school for 3 years. And then some people take their time. Some people work in between. I took my time doing it. I worked during the summers, did lots of internships and things like
that. Okay. Did you consider law school hard?
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard to get in and it was equally hard to get out. But yeah, it's challenging. I mean, I say this and I think people think I'm joking when I say it, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. Legitimately, honestly, I feel that way. It was a challenge. It was difficult. The thing about law school that's tricky is that you are, and this is probably true with any graduate degree, you're dealing with your competition being the best of the best. Yeah. So everyone there is a good student or motivated or passionate, whatever have you. And so it really is everyone that's sort of the cream of the crop there in one place competing against one another academically, and then you're graded on a curve. And so it makes it very difficult.
I remember, and you're going to have to help me here, who is our female Supreme Court justice, the more recent one? I'm blanking on right now. Sotomayor?
Sotomayor, yeah.
Yeah, I remember she had an interview I read a couple years back saying that when she got to college, she was no longer, top of her class. She was now just one of everybody at the school was top of her class.
Right.
And as she moved up, that was what it was at each new level of education she went to. That, okay, I'm top of my class here. Well, now I'm a face in a crowd, and I have to become top of class here.
Right.
And then I move up to the next level, and I have to become top of the class because I'm just a face in the crowd. Because everyone is the best when you start getting at those levels.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you specialize in law school, or do you specialize after law school for the type of law? And what kind of law do you practice?
It really depends on the different law schools. So let me answer your last question first. So
okay.
I'm a criminal defense attorney. About 80% of my practice is criminal defense attorney. I practice with 3 other great attorneys, lots of support staff. About 15% of what we do is family law. So the other miscellaneous 5% that's left is wills and setting up trusts and nonprofits and things like that. The different law schools have different specializations or different areas of expertise that they may advertise. Some of those may be a little gimmicky because, well, for example, I remember one school that I applied to that had a public interest. It was sort of like a clinic for how to deal with um, nonprofits and public entities and things like that,
Okay.
municipalities. And that information is helpful, but when you think about it, you're really going to law school to get a degree, a law degree. And then you're going to take the bar exam, just like everyone else is going to take the bar exam. And then you're going to practice some area of law. Unless you're going to specialize in a particular area that's pretty niche and you know that going in, your law degree is equally valid no matter what sort of special program you have as an add-on. And so I suggest to people that if you know that you want to get into, say, immigration law, and there's a particular law school that has sort of a boutique program that specializes in immigration law, sure, that's great. But
Okay.
otherwise, no school is going to have a particular advantage over another school in teaching you about immigration law. But
Okay.
to answer your question, you can have different specializations. Baylor now, I think, offers a concentration, and that is, I think, less gimmicky than your other schools because the focus at Baylor Law School is to teach you how to be a courtroom litigator. And so, if you know that you want to do criminal defense or criminal prosecution, um, it helps you to go ahead and learn how to do that early on rather than learning so much about civil law and then trying to transition when you get into practice.
Okay. All right. So I do know I have a very specific student and who is interested in doing immigration law. Do you have a school off the top of your head that you recommend for immigration law?
I don't. Now I have some people that I can refer her
Okay.
to practice immigration law, and I can see what they have to say about the schools that they went to, whether they felt like it was particularly helpful. But nothing comes to mind, just because that's not a field that we work in.
Okay. Yeah, if you'll send those to me via email a little bit later. And I am trying to remember which student asked me that off the top of my head, but I've got 150 students with a whole bunch of questions right now. So I'm like, I know somebody asked me, I just don't remember who. So, well, let's go ahead and get into some of our standard questions. Okay, okay, first question. Did you ever have any issues with the state bar exam?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, define issues. I mean, it's hard. Um, it the thing that's hard about the bar is that it's a psychological pressure. All your education, your schooling culminates in these 3 days, and it's a 4-hour test the first day, a 8-hour test the second day. I think it's about 200 multiple choice questions, and then
Wow.
8-hour all essay exam on the third day. And the third day is really the one that kills you. And so it's an endurance race. They're looking for minimum proficiency, but it's very stressful. And if you look at the State Bar of Texas website, you can see the different schools that were represented by bar exam takers and their passage rates. And so another recommendation that I have for people that are looking into law schools is look at the various schools that are represented as bar takers and see what their passage rate is, because
Okay.
you don't want to spend 3 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars or whatever, take the bar exam and then not pass it or not be able to pass it. And so you'll see consistently certain schools are always represented in the top 10. Baylor is always represented high. I think this time they had an 89% passage rate, and it was the
Wow.
highest passage rate. UT, I think SMU, I think those schools are usually well represented in the top tier of bar passage rates.
Okay. All right. So this question, I'm not exactly sure what the student's asking, but they said, what are mostly plea bargains, or what do you usually plea bargain on? And how does one commence a plea bargain?
Okay. So let me just give you an overview about how plea bargains work and the value that they have to the system. So if you can imagine having maybe 1,000 people sitting in jail that were waiting to go to trial. and you only had two courts that could try their cases. There's more people and cases that are in the system than there are weeks of the year in which a jury trial could be had to move those cases through the system. So the value of a plea bargain is for the state, the government, to save resources, time, money, effort, energy, not have to marshal their witnesses together in order to incentivize efficiency. They offer less to a defendant than the going rate would be in a trial. So, you can sort of imagine if a jury of 12 people were to look at a case and, maybe that type of case has been tried several times in the last year, and you can see that all those defendants are getting high verdicts. That tells you what the community sort of thinks of that kind of crime. And you can sort of create a going rate, so to speak, of what the punishment is for that sort of that crime. And so by offering the defendant less than that, the thought is you are, as a defendant, you are minimizing your risk in going to a trial, but you're also giving up things. You're giving up your right to a trial. You're giving your right to confront the evidence, to cross-examine witnesses and things like that. So that's why we have plea bargains. And so then when you have a plea bargain, the way it works, I mean, it's typical that in almost any case, there is some negotiation that happens. And usually it's the prosecutor saying, this is what we think a just and fair punishment is, or what we think a punishment would be based on what a jury would give if we were to go forward to a trial. And so this is what we're extending to you. And then the defendant has the opportunity to accept that or reject it, or to counter offer with a different type of plea negotiation. And maybe at that point in time, there's information the prosecutor doesn't already have access to that should affect their evaluation of the case. And so at that point, maybe you would explain, hey, this witness now lives in a different state, or this witness isn't credible because of criminal history or whatever have you. And so then your negotiation can sort of begin. For lack of a better word, your haggling can start to begin at that point in time. You meet somewhere where both parties are happy, or at least content in an ideal world, and then you're able to move forward with the plea bargain.
Okay, so just as kind of an analogy, would you say plea bargaining is like, let's say you're on eBay and you make an offer. You make an offer and the person can either accept it or reject it, or they could take their chance by just going to a regular auction. Is that kind of what a plea deal is like?
Yeah, that's actually a good example. I sort of laugh because we, in our office, we have a phrase that we'll use. We'll call it the buy it now price. And so whenever there is a particularly good offer that's being made, something that for some reason is just phenomenal and a client needs to take that offer, we'll advise them that's the buy it now price. You need to go ahead and hit the button, buy it now.
Hit the button. That person's looking to move it. You need to go ahead and jump on this.
That's right.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Is there anything you would advise someone who wants to be an attorney? What should they take in undergrad?
Don't do it. Oh, in undergrad, really anything that you feel like you might want to pursue. I think that law schools are interested in people that know that they want to be lawyers and that aren't going to just do law school for a year and then say, oh, I'm going to do something else. They want people that are in it for the long haul. And so there are certain types of majors that they traditionally look at as serious candidates. So for some reason, political science, because a lot of law school graduates go on later and they do politics. So that's one that I think that they look at as a traditional background. I think more and more philosophy is being looked at as a traditional background, which makes perfect sense because there's so much reasoning that's involved in learning the law and learning how to be a lawyer. But having said that, when you get to law school, it is a brand new language. It's like learning Russian. you know, or something Slavic that doesn't even have a romantic language-based background. I mean, it's just completely different. You have to learn how to think a different way, write a different way, speak a different way. And so there really is no bad major to have. And somehow or another, something in your background at some point in time is going to help you. The people that I knew that did particularly well in my class, one was a philosophy major, the other one was a music major.